All right, let's jump right in. The biggest challenge when it comes to innovation isn't just coming up with one great idea. It's about building a system, a process to find the next one and the one after that. So how do you take something as messy and unpredictable as finding a hit product and make it reliable? Well, that's what we're going to break down today with a really cool method called the Innovation Tournament.
So, to really see how this works, we're going to look at a company called Frolicat. They absolutely burst onto the pet scene with this product, the Bolt. It's a pretty simple idea, right? A laser toy that zips a little red dot around for cats to chase. And it was a huge, huge success. I mean, they had a major hit on their hands, which, is every entrepreneur's dream. But it also created a brand new and pretty big problem.
And that's the big question right there. You've managed to capture lightning in a bottle one time. Now what? How do you do it again? How do you follow up a massive success and prove it wasn't just a one-hit wonder? Well, this was the exact challenge Frolicat was facing, and lucky for us, their solution is a perfect playbook for any team out there looking for their next big thing. Okay, so Frolicat knew they had to do something more than just a Bolt. They wanted to stick with what they knew, cat toys, but they couldn't just guess. They needed a real, structured way to find another product that actually had a shot at being a winner. And their journey, well, it's a fantastic case study in how to spot new opportunities. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's get on the same page about a key word here: opportunity. In this world, an opportunity isn't just some random idea. It's way more specific. It's that perfect intersection, that sweet spot, where you find a real customer need and you've got a possible solution for it. It's basically a solid hypothesis for a brand new product. Now, here's the thing. Not all opportunities are the same. This chart does a brilliant job of mapping them out. Think of it like a risk map for your ideas. Down in that bottom left corner, you've got your safest bets, little tweaks and improvements to stuff you already sell. But as you move up and to the right, you're getting into much riskier territory. We're talking bold new ideas for brand new markets.
So you've got to know what game you're playing. Horizon 1 is all about tweaking what works. Horizon 3 is swinging for the fences, a total moonshot. Frolicat decided to play it smart. They wanted to build on their success, but they weren't ready for a crazy gamble. So they aimed right for the middle, Horizon 2. The goal? A next-generation product for the people who already love them, cat owners.
So how did they explore that Horizon 2? Well, that brings us to this core idea: the Innovation Tournament. I just love this way of thinking about it. You treat the search for a new idea like a sports tournament. You start with a whole bunch of contenders, you put them through a series of tough rounds, and in the end, only one champion is left standing, the one idea that's really worth your money and time. And just how many contenders did Frolicat start with? 50. That's right, they came up with 50 raw ideas to kick off their tournament. Now, that might sound like a lot, but it's absolutely crucial. The whole thing works because you start with a super wide funnel. You need a ton of ideas at the beginning, good and bad, to make sure you don't accidentally miss a hidden gem. It's all about quantity at this stage. And this visual really shows you how it works. See all those ideas flooding in on the left? They have to survive these different stages: concepting, design, testing. With each stage, more and more ideas get knocked out, until only the strongest one makes it to the finish line. A big part of the goal here isn't just to pick a good idea, it's to kill the bad ones as quickly and cheaply as possible. And this isn't just some abstract theory, this is exactly how Frolicat's tournament played out in the real world. They started with those 50 raw ideas, filtered them down to just 7 promising concepts. From there, they actually built rough prototypes for 3 of them. And then, finally, they picked just one to go all in on and launch. This whole tournament is built on a formal 6-step process. First, you establish a charter. Basically, you set the rules of the game. Then you generate a ton of ideas. You screen them, you develop the best ones, you select the final winner, and then, and this part's really important, you reflect on how it all went. So let's zoom in on that second step for a second. Where do those 50 ideas even come from? This chart is pretty revealing. It turns out that almost half of great ideas come from inside a company. And that makes sense, right? Your own team knows your stuff best. But this also shows a huge potential blind spot. If you're not looking outside, especially to your customers, you're missing out on a massive source of game-changing ideas. And there are so many proven ways to spark these ideas. Here's just one great example: a technique called imitate but better.
The idea is you take a totally basic commodity product, like plain old mints, and you totally reimagine it as a premium experience. That's exactly what Altoids did, with that cool tin and their curiously strong flavor. It's a perfect example of how you can innovate without having to invent something from thin air.
Okay, so you've run your tournament, you've filtered your 50 ideas all the way down to a handful of finalists. Now for the really hard part. How do you make that final call? How do you pick the one idea you're going to bet the farm on? You need a really solid framework to make sure you're not just going with your gut. And that framework is often called RWW, which stands for 3 simple questions. Is the opportunity real? Can we win? And is it worth it? It's a super powerful set of questions to pressure test your final ideas. Is there a real market for this? Can we actually beat the competition? And will this be profitable and a good fit for us in the long run?
And we can actually see how Frolicat used this for one of their finalists, a concept for a swinging ball toy. What's so great here is how honest they are. They're confident the market is real and that they can actually build it. But check out the win category. When they ask if they have superior resources, the answer is no. This is so key. The framework doesn't just tell you yes or no. It shines a big, bright spotlight on your exact risks and weaknesses.
So even with that weakness they identified, the swinging ball idea came out on top. It was the strongest contender overall. So let's follow this all the way to the end and see what happened when they officially declared it the winner of their innovation tournament.
And here it is. This is the payoff for the whole process. On the left, that's one of the first rough sketches of the idea. And on the right, that's the final product that actually hit the shelves, the Frolicat Sway. Seeing it go from that simple drawing to a real thing you can buy, that's what this process is all about.
The Sway ended up being launched in major stores, including on Amazon. And the market response was really positive. It worked. They had successfully created a follow-up to their first huge hit. And they did it not through luck or a random guess, but through a disciplined, structured process. And that brings us to the final and maybe most important step, looking back. The work isn't done when the product launches. You have to ask yourselves the tough questions. Did we really start with enough ideas? Was our original goal maybe too narrow? Were we actually fair and unbiased when we were cutting ideas? And maybe the biggest one of all, is the team genuinely excited about what we made?
So what the Frolicat story really shows us is that finding that next big idea doesn't have to be some kind of magic. It can be a process, something structured, manageable, and best of all, repeatable, which really leaves us with just one question to think about. If you were going to start today, what would be the very first step in your own innovation tournament?